They left more than just a daughter at the busiest terminal in America. They abandoned their living wallet, standing alone as their flight departed. I called 122 times with zero answers, but when I made the 123rd call to freeze my bank accounts, they suddenly remembered my existence. Unfortunately, they were already at 30,000 feet, descending into a financial hell that no credit card could fix. My name is Jocelyn Renford. I am 29 years old, and on paper, I am a success story. As the creative director at Nebula Horizon, one of the sharpest boutique advertising agencies in Chicago, I manage million-dollar budgets, soothe the egos of temperamental clients, and spot a single pixel out of alignment from across a boardroom. My colleagues call me the fixer. They say there is no crisis I cannot navigate, no fire I cannot put out with a calm smile and a signature on a check. They are wrong. Because while I can command a room of 50 executives, I apparently cannot get my own family to treat me like a human being. 3 weeks ago, I made the mistake of thinking I could buy their love. It was my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. My mother had been dropping hints about Paris for 6 months, leaving travel brochures on my coffee table and sighing loudly whenever a romance movie came on the television. My father, a man who had not paid for a full tank of gas in a decade, would just grunt and say, "It must be nice to see the world before you die." The guilt was a slow-acting poison, and I drank it willingly. I booked the trip. I did not just book a trip. I curated an experience. I paid for 4 round-trip tickets, 1 for me, 2 for my parents, and 1 for Kieran, my younger brother, because my mother insisted that we could not leave the baby behind. The baby is 26 years old. Then, a week before the flight, Kieran announced he was bringing his new girlfriend, a girl named Brittany, who chewed gum like it was a competitive sport and looked at me like I was the help. I paid for her ticket too. I paid for the upgrade to Economy Plus for them, while I took the middle seat in the back row to keep the budget from exploding. I paid for the Airbnb in the Marais district because my mother read somewhere that hotels were impersonal. The total cost was nearing $12,000. I told myself it was an investment in memories. I was right. It was an investment in a memory that would haunt me for the rest of my life. The nightmare began the moment we stepped out of the Uber XL at JFK Airport. It was 2 hours before our flight to Paris, and the terminal was a living organism of stress and noise. The air smelled of stale coffee and jet fuel. "Jocelyn, the driver is waiting for a tip," Kieran said, standing on the curb with his hands in the pockets of his designer sweatpants I had bought him for Christmas. He watched as I hauled 2 50-pound suitcases out of the trunk. I tipped him in the app. "Kieran," I said, my breath fogging in the cold November air. "Grab Mom's bag, please." "I can't," he said, gesturing to the venti iced latte he was holding. "My hands are full. Besides, you're closer." My father was already walking toward the automatic doors, not looking back. My mother was busy adjusting her scarf, checking her reflection in the glass. Brittany was taking a selfie with the departure sign. I sighed, the sound lost in the roar of a passing bus, and grabbed the handles. I dragged the luggage inside, the wheels catching on the concrete. Playing the role I had been cast in since I was 16, the pack mule. Inside, the line for check-in was a winding serpent of frustrated travelers. I had printed everyone's itinerary. I had organized the visas. I had double-checked the baggage allowance. But as we reached the counter, the chaos I had spent years managing finally spilled over. "This bag is 7 pounds overweight," the agent said, looking at my mother's massive floral suitcase with dead eyes. "That will be a $75 fee," my mother gasped, clutching her pearls. $75. That is robbery, Jocelyn. Tell her it's just clothes." "It is the policy, ma'am," the agent said, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Just pay it, Jocelyn," my father grumbled, checking his watch. "We're going to miss the lounge access. I want a drink before we board." I pulled out my credit card, the same card that paid their mortgage when Dad retired early, the same card that paid for Kieran's 3 failed attempts at community college. Charge it, I said to the agent. We moved through the process like a disjointed herd. I held all the passports. I held the boarding passes. I ushered them toward the security checkpoint, my anxiety humming under my skin like a high-tension wire. We had 45 minutes until boarding. It was tight, but doable. And then, the universe decided to test my breaking point. We were standing in the chaotic space just before the TSA screening area. My mother was rummaging through her purse, her face growing pale. "I can't find it," she whispered. "Find what?" "Mom," I asked, already knowing the answer. "My passport. I had it at the counter. I had it right here." Her voice rose to a shrill panic that turned heads 3 lines over. She began dumping the contents of her bag onto a plastic bench: lipsticks, tissues, half-eaten granola bars, old receipts, no blue booklet. "Oh, for God's sake, Linda," my father snapped. "You always do this." "I didn't lose it. The woman at the counter must not have given it back." She looked at me, her eyes wide and wet. "Jocelyn, you have to go back and get it, please." "I can't go back there. My knees hurt." I looked at the security line. It was getting longer by the second. I looked at the clock on the wall. We had 35 minutes. "If I go back to the counter, we might miss the flight," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We won't if you run," Kieran said. He snatched the stack of boarding passes from my hand. "Give me these. We'll go through security and hold the plane for you. You go find Mom's passport and meet us at the gate. Run, Joss. Seriously, hustle." "But, go," my father barked. "Don't just stand there. Do you want to ruin this trip?" I looked at them. My mother was trembling. My father was angry. Kieran looked bored. I made a split-second calculation. If we all went back, we all missed the flight. If I went back alone, I could sprint and maybe, just maybe, make it. "Fine," I said. Go through security. Gate B42. Do not stop for food. Go straight to the gate." Yeah, we know," Kieran said, already turning away, his arm around Brittany's waist. "Just hurry up." I turned and ran. I ran back through the terminal, dodging families with strollers and businessmen with roller bags. My heels clicked frantically against the linoleum. I reached the check-in counter, breathless, sweat pricking at my hairline. The line was empty now. "Excuse me," I gasped to the agent. "My mother, the floral bag, she left her passport." The agent looked up, annoyed, then glanced down at her desk. "Oh, yeah, it slid under the keyboard." She handed it to me with a shrug. I snatched it and turned around. The clock ticked. 20 minutes left. I could make it. I had run marathons. I was fit. I sprinted back to security. Of course, the pre-check lane was closed. I had to beg my way to the front of the general line, enduring the glares and curses of strangers. "Family emergency. Please, I'm so sorry. Please," I chanted, humiliating myself with every step. I threw my shoes on the belt. I shoved my laptop into a bin. I waited in agonizing silence as the scanner spun around me. I grabbed my things, not bothering to tie my laces, and ran in my socks until I was clear of the area. Gate B42 was at the very end of the terminal. It felt like miles. My lungs burned. My side ached. I checked my watch. 10 minutes past the boarding time, but planes usually waited a few minutes for late passengers, especially if their family was already on board telling the crew they were coming. Kieran had the passes. He would tell them. I rounded the final corner, my chest heaving, a stitch in my side sharp as a knife. The gate area was empty. The chairs were vacant. The digital sign above the door no longer said Paris. It was blank. The jet bridge door was closed. I skid to a halt at the podium, where a lone gate agent was typing on a computer. She looked up at me, startled by my disheveled appearance. "The flight," I wheezed, leaning on the counter for support. "Flight 204 to Paris. Did it? She looked at me with a mixture of confusion and pity. "Flight 204. That flight pushed back 15 minutes ago. Ma'am, it is already on the taxiway." The world tilted slightly to the left. "No," I said. "No, that's not possible. My family is on that plane. They have my boarding pass. They told you I was coming. They said they would hold it." The agent frowned and tapped a few keys. "What is your name?" "Renford. Jocelyn Renford. There were 5 of us. My brother, Kieran, had my pass." She read the screen, and her expression shifted from professional detachment to something softer, something sadder. "Ms. Renford, I see the party here. 4 passengers boarded. Mr. Kieran Renford, Mr. and Mrs. Renford, and a Miss, Brittany S. They boarded 20 minutes ago." Did they tell you I was coming?" I asked, my voice sounding very small in the vast, empty terminal. The agent hesitated. She looked like she didn't want to say what came next. "Actually, ma'am, the young man, Mr. Renford, he told the gate crew that the 5th passenger had decided not to come. He said you had canceled your ticket and that we should offload your luggage so they could depart on time." The silence that followed was louder than the jet engines outside. "He said I canceled," I whispered. "Yes, he was quite insistent. He said you had a work emergency and stayed behind." I stepped back from the counter, my legs feeling like they were made of water. "Thank you," I managed to say. I walked over to the floor-to-ceiling windows. I pressed my hand against the cold glass. Out on the tarmac, a massive silver bird was inching toward the runway. My plane, my money, my family. I pulled my phone from my pocket. My hands were shaking so hard I dropped it twice before I could unlock it. I called my father. Straight to voicemail. I called my mother. Straight to voicemail. I called Kieran. Ring, ring, ring. Decline. He declined the call. I called again, and again. Panic. Irrational and desperate. Clawed at my throat. Maybe there was a mistake. Maybe they were holding the plane and I just couldn't see it. Maybe they were fighting the flight attendants right now, demanding they turn back for me. I sat down on the dirty carpet of the terminal floor, my back against a pillar. I hit redial. 1 call, 10 calls, 30 calls. I watched the plane lift off into the gray sky. It became a speck, then disappeared into the clouds. 50 calls, 80 calls. People walked past me. They looked at the woman in the expensive trench coat sitting on the floor with one shoe on, frantically jabbing at her phone. And they looked away. I was a spectacle of public unraveling. 100 calls. I called until my battery dropped to 12%. I called for 2 solid hours. Long after I knew they were in the air. I called 122 times. My thumb hovered over the call button for the 123rd time when a text message banner slid across the top of my screen. It was from Kieran. I opened it. The timestamp showed it had been sent right before they took off, probably while I was sprinting barefoot through security. Kieran: "We flew ahead to save space. Get your own ticket. Don't forget to transfer more money to the card. Paris is expensive." I stared at the words. We flew ahead. To save space. Buy your own ticket. Send money. He hadn't just left me, he had discarded me, and in the same breath. He had asked for more money. The panic that had been squeezing my heart suddenly vanished. It didn't fade. It snapped. It was replaced by a sensation I had never felt before. It was a cold, absolute clarity. It started in my stomach and spread to my fingertips, numbing the shaking. I slowly stood up. My knees cracked. I walked over to the bathroom near the gate. I pushed open the door and stood in front of the mirror. The woman staring back at me looked wrecked. Her hair was coming out of her bun. Her mascara was smudged under one eye. Her blouse was wrinkled from the run. But under the exhaustion, there was something else. A stranger was looking out from behind my eyes. For 10 years, I had been their safety net. I had paid off my father's gambling debts and called it investment help. I had paid for my mother's cosmetic surgeries and called it birthday gifts. I had paid for Kieran's life and called it support. I had convinced myself that this was what family did. You carried them. But they hadn't just let me carry them. They had climbed onto my back and then covered my eyes so I wouldn't see them steering me off a cliff. 122 calls, I said to my reflection. My voice was raspy, but steady. They didn't answer because they didn't care. They didn't answer because they thought I would do what I always did. Cry, panic, blame myself, buy the next ticket at 3 times the price, and meet them in Paris with an apology for being late. They thought I would transfer the money. They thought I would be grateful they let me catch up. I looked at the phone in my hand. The battery was red. My family was in the air, sipping the champagne I paid for, watching movies on the screens I paid for, flying toward a vacation I paid for. I opened my contacts list. I scrolled past Dad, past Mom, past Kieran. I stopped at a number I had saved for emergencies, but never used. The bank, the priority fraud line for high net worth clients. I pressed call. Nebula Horizon, I whispered to the mirror, straightening my collar. I fix problems. The operator answered on the first ring. Citibank Priority Services. This is David speaking. How can I help you? Ms. Renford. David, I said, my voice smooth and professional. The voice I used when I was firing an incompetent vendor. I need to report a theft. Several credit cards in my name have been compromised. I need you to freeze everything, immediately. Certainly, ma'am. Which cards? All of them, I said. The Platinum Amex, the Visa Infinite, the Joint Checking Access, and the supplementary cards issued to Robert, Linda, and Kieran Renford. We can do that, David said. When would you like this to take effect? I looked at the clock. They were over the Atlantic Ocean now. 5 hours until they landed in a foreign country where they did not speak the language, with no cash, no return tickets, and phones that were linked to my service plan. Right now, I said. And David, make sure they are flagged as stolen. I want the machines to eat them if they try to use them. Done, he said. I hung up the phone. I didn't buy a ticket to Paris. I walked out of the terminal, hailed a yellow cab, and gave the driver my address in Chicago. That is a long ride, lady, the driver said, looking at me in the rearview mirror. You sure? I have time? I said. I have the rest of my life. The ride would cost a fortune. But for the first time in 10 years, I wasn't paying for anyone else's baggage. I leaned my head back against the seat and watched the airport disappear behind me. The plane was gone, and so was the Jocelyn they knew. The taxi ride back to Chicago from the airport took 45 minutes. I spent the entire duration of the trip staring out the window at the gray blur of the interstate, feeling a strange, hollow sensation in my chest. It was not grief. Grief is heavy. This was lightness, the terrifying, vertigo-inducing lightness of a tether snapping in high wind. I did not check my phone. I did not cry. When the driver pulled up to my building, a glass and steel high-rise in the West Loop that I had bought 2 years ago, I tipped him $50 in cash and walked inside. My apartment was silent. It was a pristine, curated silence that usually comforted me after a long week at the agency, but today it felt like a command center. I locked the door behind me. I engaged the deadbolt. Then, I walked straight to my home office, sat down at my mahogany desk, and opened my MacBook. The screen came to life, the blue light reflecting in my eyes. I was not Lauren, the sad girl eating pumpkin pie on the floor. I was Jocelyn Renford, the woman who managed multi-million-dollar campaigns for Fortune 500 companies. I knew how to dismantle a brand. I knew how to kill a project. And now, I was going to dismantle the financial ecosystem of the Renford family. I opened a blank Excel spreadsheet. I named the file Liquidation. My fingers flew across the keyboard. I began to list every single expense I covered. In my head, I had always known it was a lot, but seeing it manifest in rows and columns was nauseating. Row 1, parents' mortgage, $2,400 a month. I had taken over the payments 5 years ago when my father claimed his pension had been miscalculated. Row 2, Kieran's Range Rover lease, $980 a month. He told me he needed a safe car for the winter snow. He lived in Florida for 3 of those years. Row 3, country club membership, $600 a month, essential for my father's networking, though he had not held a job in a decade. Row 4 health insurance premiums, $1,200. Row 5 cell phone family plan, $450. Row 6 through 20 streaming services, gym memberships, wine club subscriptions, Amazon Prime, meal kit deliveries, premium cable, cloud storage for Kieran's photography portfolio, car insurance, home insurance, landscaping fees. I stared at the total at the bottom of the column. It was a number that could have been a down payment, a number built from my overtime, my skipped lunches, the tight knot in my stomach, and the way my personal life kept getting postponed. I'd been stretching myself thin to make their days feel easy only to hear them gripe about the inconvenience. That was the moment I decided to stop. I minimized the spreadsheet and opened my banking portal. I'd already contacted the bank to report the cards compromised. But I wanted to be meticulous. I needed to make sure that even if they tried to charm their way through, the system wouldn't budge. I clicked into Manage Cards, and there they were, 4 additional cards tied to my primary Sapphire Reserve account, Dad, Mom, Kieran, and a 4th one I had stupidly issued to Brittany just yesterday because Kieran said she needed to buy essentials for the trip. I clicked on each card. I selected the option, Report Lost/Stolen. I confirmed the action. The screen flashed a warning. This action is irreversible. The physical cards will be deactivated immediately. I clicked Confirm. A grim satisfaction settled in my gut. Somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, those pieces of plastic were now just worthless scrap. Next came the hotel. I logged into my travel account. I had booked 2 suites at the Hotel Regina Louvre. It was a 5-star property right across from the museum. My mother had insisted on a view of the Tuileries garden. The reservation was non-refundable this close to arrival, but I could still cancel the booking. I looked at the cancellation policy. Full penalty applies. It would cost me nearly $4,000 to cancel. If I left the reservation active, they would arrive, check in, and sleep in the luxury I had paid for. They would order room service and charge it to the room. They would laugh about how I would eventually calm down and pay the bill, if I canceled. They would arrive at the front desk tired, jet-lagged, and expecting champagne, only to be told they had no place to sleep. I selected Cancel Reservation. The website asked, "Are you sure you will not be refunded the amount of €3,850? I am paying for the look on your faces," I said aloud to the empty room. I clicked Yes. The confirmation email hit my inbox 3 seconds later. "Your reservation has been canceled." I moved to the next tab, the phone carrier. We were on a shared family plan with unlimited international data. I was the primary account holder. I went into the settings for each of their lines: line ending in 45, line ending in 22, line ending in 98. I found the feature labeled International Roaming. It was currently toggled to on. I toggled it to off. Then, to be absolutely certain, I disabled data access entirely for their lines and set their data limit to 0 gigabytes. Without Wi-Fi, their phones were now essentially fancy paperweights. They would land in Charles de Gaulle Airport, a labyrinth of a place, with no Google Maps, no Uber app, no translation tools, and no way to call me, not that I would answer. I sat back in my chair and exhaled. My hands were steady. The air in the room felt cleaner. My mind drifted back, unbidden, to the things I had suppressed for years. I remembered my 16th birthday. I had come home from school excited because I had aced my chemistry final. I walked into the kitchen to find a cake on the counter. My heart had leaped. Then I saw the writing and icing, "Good luck at regionals." Kieran had made the reserve team for junior varsity soccer. My birthday had simply ceased to exist in the shadow of his mediocrity. When I asked about it, my mother had sighed and said, "Oh, Jocelyn, don't be so sensitive. We can get you a cupcake tomorrow. Your brother needs his protein for the game." I remembered my college graduation. I was valedictorian. I gave a speech to a stadium of 5,000 people. I looked for them in the crowd the entire time. Later, I found out they had left early because the seats were uncomfortable and Kieran was bored. They were at a TGI Fridays down the street when I threw my cap in the air. They had been training me for this moment my entire life. They had taught me that my presence was optional, but my utility was mandatory. Today, I was teaching them a new lesson: the utility is gone, and the absence is permanent. My phone buzzed on the desk, vibrating against the wood. I looked at the screen. It was a notification from my banking app. Transaction declined, Air France duty free. Amount $450. I stared at it. They were buying perfume, or maybe expensive scotch. They were 30,000 feet in the air, completely unaware that the card had been declined, not because of a glitch, but because the bank now considered them thieves. Another buzz. Transaction declined. Air France duty free. Amount $80. They were trying a smaller amount. Maybe they thought the first one was a mistake. Transaction declined, Air France in-flight Wi-Fi. Amount $25. Kieran. He was trying to get online. He was probably trying to text me to scream about the card not working. I smiled. It was a small, cold smile that did not reach my eyes. Not today. Kieran, I whispered. I picked up my phone, but not to answer them. I dialed the number for Human Resources at Nebula Horizon. This is Sarah, the voice on the other end said. Sarah, it is Jocelyn. I need to invoke my emergency personal leave, effective immediately. I will be out for 1 week. Oh, Jocelyn, is everything okay? You never take time off. There has been a family crisis, I said. The lie tasted sweet because it was technically the truth. The crisis was that my family was about to become destitute. I also need you to transfer me to IT security, right now. Of course, holding, a moment later, the deep voice of Marcus, our head of IT, came on the line. Jocelyn. What's up? Marcus, I need you to lock down my external access. I want 2-factor authentication reset on everything: email, server access, payroll portal, and I want a flag put on my file. If anyone calls claiming to be my father, my mother, or my brother, or anyone claiming to be a doctor or a lawyer on their behalf, the call is to be routed directly to voicemail. Under no circumstances is anyone to be given information about my employment status or my location. Marcus paused. He had worked with me for 5 years. He knew I was not prone to drama. Stalker situation, he asked, his voice dropping an octave. Something like that, I said. Just lock it down. Marcus, ironclad. Consider it done. I will scrub your info from the public directory too, just to be safe. Thank you. I hung up. The digital fortress was complete. I had severed the financial arteries. I had cut the communication lines. I had fortified my professional perimeter. I stood up and walked to the kitchen. I opened the wine fridge and pulled out a bottle of Pinot Noir that cost $80. I usually saved it for special occasions, like landing a new client or a promotion. Today, I was celebrating my own liberation. I poured a generous glass. The dark red liquid swirled against the crystal. I took a sip, letting the tannins coat my tongue. It tasted like victory. I walked back to the living room and looked at my phone one last time. The screen was lighting up with a barrage of notifications. Missed call. Kieran, missed call Kieran. Voicemail, Mom. Transaction declined Uber, pending authorization. They must be close to landing. Or maybe they were just frantically trying to test the cards before they touched the ground. I held down the power button on the side of my iPhone. The screen went black. I placed the phone on the coffee table. I finished my wine in the silence of the apartment that I owned, paid for by the job I earned, protected by the boundaries I had finally built. For the first time in 29 years. I did not wonder if they were okay. I did not worry about how they would get to the hotel. I did not calculate how much overtime I would need to work to cover their mistakes. I walked into my bedroom, stripped off my travel clothes, and slipped between the high thread count sheets. The room was cool and dark. I closed my eyes. I expected to toss and turn. I expected guilt to creep in like a draft under the door, but there was nothing. No guilt, no anxiety. Just the heavy, comforting blanket of absolute finality. I slept, and for the first time in a decade, I did not dream of them, while I was sleeping the sleep of the righteous in Chicago. The Renford family was descending into the seventh circle of bureaucratic hell, also known as Charles de Gaulle Airport, without a valid credit card. They landed at 8 in the morning. Paris time. I can picture it vividly. My mother would have been the first to stand up while the seatbelt sign was still on, eager to rush to customs so she could start her Parisian adventure. My father would be complaining about his back, and Kieran would be checking his hair in his phone camera, ready to post a touchdown in the City of Lights selfie. The first domino fell the moment they deactivated airplane mode. Usually, this is when the familiar ding-ding-ding of notifications floods in welcome messages from the local carrier. Missed texts, emails. Instead, they were met with the digital equivalent of a brick wall. "My phone is not working," my mother whined, tapping the screen aggressively as they stood in the baggage claim area. "It says no service. Robert, check yours." "Mine says the same thing," my father grunted, shaking his device as if that would realign the satellites. "Damn French networks. Probably on strike." "I have 0 bars," Kieran said, frowning. "This is garbage. I need to call an Uber Black. I am not dragging these bags to the taxi line." He tried to open the Uber app. It spun and spun, then displayed the dreaded network error. "Please check your connection." "Jocelyn probably forgot to pay the bill," Brittany chimed in, popping her gum. "She is so scatterbrained lately." "Well, use the airport Wi-Fi," Kieran snapped. He connected to the free public network, which was notoriously slow and required a sign-in. Once connected, he immediately opened the Uber app again. He selected the destination, the Hotel Regina Louvre, and requested an Uber Black van for 4 people and luggage. The app processed for a second. Then a red banner appeared. "Payment method declined. Please update your card." "What the hell?" Kieran muttered. He switched to the secondary card on file, the Visa I gave him. "Payment declined." He switched to my father's card. "Payment declined." "Dad, your card is not working," Kieran said, his voice rising in pitch. "Don't be stupid. I just used it at the airport in New York," my father said. He pulled out his wallet and marched over to a kiosk selling local SIM cards. "I will just buy us some local data. Watch and learn." He grabbed 4 SIM cards, totaling about €100, and swiped his Platinum Amex with the flourish of a man who has never worried about a credit limit. The machine beeped, a harsh, dissonant sound. "Transaction refusée. Contacter l'émetteur." The clerk behind the counter, a bored Parisian woman who had seen everything, sighed. "It is declined, monsieur." "Try it again," my father demanded. "It is a platinum card." She tried it again. Beep, declined. "Try the Visa," my mother said, handing over her card. Beep, declined. "Try yours. Kieran," my father barked, sweat starting to bead on his forehead. Kieran slapped his card on the reader. Beep, declined. The clerk looked at them with disdain. "Do you have cash?" They froze. Cash was something they carried for tips, not for survival. My father opened his wallet and fished out 3 $20 bills and a handful of quarters. My mother had a $50 bill hidden in her purse for emergencies. Kieran had nothing. "We have dollars," my father said weakly. "We take euros," the clerk said. Turning her back to them, panic began to set in. Real, visceral panic. They were stranded in a foreign airport with no phone service, no working credit cards, and about $100 in cash between 4 adults. "Call Jocelyn," my mother shrieked. "Call her right now. She must have messed up the accounts." Kieran, still connected to the airport Wi-Fi, tried to FaceTime me. It rang and rang on his end, but on my end, it was blocked. He tried WhatsApp, blocked. He tried regular calling over Wi-Fi, blocked, furious. He opened Instagram. He typed a message, his thumbs hammering the screen. "Kieran, what the hell are you doing? Unblock the cards right now. We are stuck. Are you insane? I saw this message later." I did not reply. "She is not answering," Kieran yelled, throwing his hands up. "She blocked me on everything." "That ungrateful little—" My father trailed off, his face turning a dangerous shade of purple. "When I get my hands on her." We have to get to the hotel, my mother cried. Once we are at the hotel, we can use their phone to call the bank. We just need to get there. We can't afford a taxi, Kieran said, looking at the prices. A taxi to the city is like 60 euros. We barely have enough cash to convert for food. We have to take the train. My father spat the word out like it was poison. The train. Brittany looked horrified. Like the subway with the luggage. We have no choice, my father roared. And so, the Renford family, dressed in their travel finest, my mother in her Burberry coat, Kieran in his Balenciaga sneakers dragged 4 massive suitcases and 2 carry-ons down the escalators to the RERB train station. They struggled with the ticket machines, arguing over the interface, until they finally managed to buy 4 one-way tickets, using almost all of their exchanged cash. The train ride was a nightmare of their own making. It was rush hour. The train was packed. They had to stand, clutching their bags as the train rattled through the graffiti-covered suburbs of Saint-Saint-Denis. My mother held her purse to her chest like a shield. Brittany complained loudly about the smell. My father stared daggers at anyone who made eye contact. When they finally arrived at the Châtelet-les-Halles station, they had to transfer. They got lost in the labyrinth of tunnels. They dragged their heavy bags upstairs because the escalator was broken. By the time they emerged onto the Rue de Rivoli, they were sweaty, disheveled, and furious. But hope was in sight. The Hotel Regina Louvre stood before them, a beacon of gold-leafed luxury. They marched into the lobby, the wheels of their suitcases leaving streaks on the marble floor. "Checking in," my father announced to the concierge. Slapping his passport on the desk, "Renford, 2 suites." The concierge, a man with an immaculate suit and a face made of stone, typed the name into his computer. He paused. He typed again, then he looked up, his expression unreadable. "Ah, Monsieur Renford, I see the reservation here." "Good," my father said. "Send the bags up. We need showers." "I am afraid that is not possible," the concierge said smoothly. "This reservation was cancelled 8 hours ago by the booking holder, Ms. Jocelyn Renford." The silence in the lobby was absolute. "Cancelled," my mother whispered, her knees buckling. "No, that is a mistake. She wouldn't—" "It is marked as a voluntary cancellation," the concierge confirmed, "and since it was done within the penalty window, the deposit has been forfeited. Furthermore, monsieur, we are fully booked for the next 3 nights due to Fashion Week. We have no rooms available." "But we are here," my father shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. "You have to give us a room." "I cannot give you what I do not have," the concierge said, his voice dropping to a chilly whisper. "And I must ask you to lower your voice, or I will have to ask you to leave." "This is insane," Kieran yelled. "My sister is crazy. She stranded us." "That bitch," Brittany screamed. "I am going to kill her." Guests in the lobby were staring. Security began to drift toward them. "Please," my mother begged, tears streaming down her face, ruining her makeup. "We have nowhere to go. Our cards are not working. Please, just help us." "I can recommend a hostel in the 19th arrondissement," the concierge said, writing a name on a slip of paper. "It is affordable." They were escorted out of the hotel 5 minutes later, standing on the sidewalk in Paris. Surrounded by their luggage, they looked like refugees from a high-fashion war zone. "This is your fault." My father turned on my mother. "You and your damn passport. If you hadn't lost it, we would have been on the plane with her and she wouldn't have snapped." "My fault," my mother shrieked. "You told her to run. You told her we would wait. You let Kieran lie to the gate agent." "Me," Kieran stepped back. "I was trying to save the trip. How was I supposed to know she would go nuclear? Who cancels a hotel room? She is sick. She is mentally ill." "We have 40 euros left," Brittany said, looking at the cash in her hand. "Where are we going to sleep?" They ended up at the place the concierge suggested. It was not a hostel, but a 1-star hotel near the Gare du Nord, an area that was lively. At night, the room smelled of damp carpet and stale cigarettes. It had one double bed and a pull-out couch that sagged in the middle. The wallpaper was peeling. The view was of a brick wall and a dumpster. My mother sat on the edge of the questionable bed and began to scream. It was not a cry. It was a primal scream of humiliation. She had told all her friends she was staying at the Regina. She had planned her Instagram posts. Now she was in a room that looked like a crime scene photo. Back in Chicago, I woke up around noon, feeling refreshed. I made myself a coffee and opened my laptop. I logged into the Find My app on iCloud. Because I was the administrator of the family sharing plan, I could see the location of every device linked to the account. I saw 3 dots clustering together in Paris. Earlier, they had been at the airport. Then, they had moved slowly, painfully slowly along the train line. Then, a brief stop at the Louvre, the hotel. And now, I zoomed in on their current location. They were in the 10th arrondissement, on a side street known for cheap bars and cheaper motels. I cross-referenced the address with Google Maps. Hotel Terminus Nord, 2 stars. Reviews mentioned bedbugs, thin walls, and street noise. I took a screenshot of the map, the blue dot of their location pulsing in the middle of the gritty reality they now inhabited. I saved the image to a folder named Evidence. They were safe. They had a roof over their heads. I was not a monster. I hadn't left them on the street. But they were experiencing life without the Jocelyn Renford premium upgrade for the first time. I took a sip of my coffee. It tasted rich and complex. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize, but the area code was French. Text, "Mom is having a panic attack. Dad is throwing up. Brittany is crying. You need to fix this. Send money to Western Union now, or I swear to God I will ruin you. Kieran." I looked at the message. I looked at the Find My map. I deleted the text. Then, I opened my banking app again and transferred $5,000, the money I would have spent on their dinners and shopping in Paris, into my high-yield savings account. I named the transfer the Freedom Fund. Let them enjoy Paris. I heard the rats in the subway were quite friendly this time of year. The digital assault began while I was making toast. I had woken up on the second day of my vacation, feeling strangely light, but that lightness vanished the moment I turned my phone on. The screen did not just light up, it convulsed. Notifications were stacking on top of each other so fast that I could not read them. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, text messages from numbers I had not spoken to since high school. I opened Instagram first. The algorithm, cruel and efficient, had prioritized a video that was already trending in my local network. It was Kieran. He was sitting in what looked like the lobby of that dingy 2-star hotel, wearing a hoodie and looking purposefully disheveled. He had mastered the art of the influencer apology face, only he was weaponizing it for an attack. "Hey guys," he said into the camera, his voice cracking with staged emotion. "I do not usually do this, but we are desperate. My family and I are currently stranded in Paris. My sister, Jocelyn Renford, she convinced my elderly parents to fly here for their anniversary, promised to take care of everything, and then she ghosted us." He wiped a non-existent tear. "She canceled the hotel while we were in the air. She blocked our cards. She stole the money meant for our return tickets. My mom is sick. My dad is terrified. We have no food, no place to stay. And she is back in Chicago laughing at us. If anyone knows a lawyer or can help, please DM me. We just want to come home. I cannot believe my own sister would scam us like this." The caption read, "Family trauma scammer, abandoned Paris nightmare, help us." I scrolled to the comments. It was a bloodbath. Aunt Sarah, "Oh my God, Kieran, this is evil. I always knew she was cold. But this praying for you all." Uncle Mike, "Disgusting. I am calling the police. She belongs in jail." Random. User, 123. Wow, what a monster. Who does that to their parents? High school bully. I haven't seen in 10 years. Karma is real. Stay strong. Kieran. My chest tightened. They were rewriting reality in real time, to the world. I was not the victim of a decade of financial abuse. I was a sociopath who had lured innocent seniors to a foreign country to torture them. The narrative was perfect. It had a villain the rich, city-dwelling career woman, victims the poor, confused parents, and a hero, the protective brother. I went to Facebook. My mother had managed to log in using Kieran's Wi-Fi. She had posted a long, rambling status update about a mother's broken heart and the serpent you raise in your own bosom. She claimed I had embezzled their retirement funds. She claimed I had mental health issues and was off my medication. My phone rang. It was not a relative. It was the office. Jocelyn. The voice was hesitant. It was the receptionist at Nebula Horizon. Mr. Sterling wants to see you. I know you are on leave, but he said it is urgent. He sent a car. My stomach dropped. Marcus Sterling was the CEO. He did not send cars for casual chats. I will be there in 30 minutes, I said. I dressed in my sharpest blazer armor for the modern battlefield and went downstairs. The ride to the office was a blur of anxiety. Had they won? Had Kieran's lies penetrated my professional fortress? If I lost my job, I lost my power. I lost the ability to pay the mortgage on the apartment that was my only sanctuary. When I walked into Marcus's glass-walled office, he was standing by the window, looking out at the Chicago skyline. He turned when I entered. His face was unreadable. "Sit down, Jocelyn," he said. I sat. I kept my back straight. My hands folded on my lap. "Marcus, I can explain. There is a personal situation." "I know," he interrupted. He picked up a piece of paper from his desk and slid it across the glass to me. "I received a phone call this morning, and then this email followed shortly after." I looked at the paper. It was a printout of an email from Robert Renford, 1965, gmail.com. Subject: employee misconduct. Urgent. To Marcus Sterling, Dear Mr. Sterling, I am writing to inform you that your creative director, Jocelyn Renford, is a thief and a liar. She has embezzled family funds and abandoned her parents in France. She is mentally unstable and a danger to your company. She uses company time to plot against her family. If you do not fire her immediately, we will go to the press and tell them Nebula Horizon employs criminals. We expect compensation for our distress. Sincerely, Robert Renford. I felt the blood drain from my face. It was one thing to trash me on Facebook. It was another to try to destroy my livelihood. This was nuclear warfare. "Marcus," I started, my voice shaking slightly. This is not true. I mean, they are in France." But Marcus held up a hand. "Jocelyn, stop." He sat down on the edge of his desk and looked me in the eye. "I have known you for 7 years. You are the most disciplined, ethical, and terrifyingly organized person I have ever met. Last year, you caught a billing error that saved this agency $50,000. You stay late every night. You never complain." He tapped the email. This reads like the ramblings of a desperate man who is used to getting his way by bullying people. On the phone, he screamed at my assistant for 5 minutes before I took the call. He demanded I wire him $10,000 from your paycheck. He called you names that I will not repeat. I stared at him, the air rushing back into my lungs. He asked for my paycheck." "He did," Marcus said. "I told him that if he contacted me or this office again, I would have our legal department file a harassment suit so fast his head would spin." Then I hung up. He leaned forward. "I am not firing you, Jocelyn. I am asking if you need help. We have a corporate legal team on retainer. If you need a shark, I can loan you a shark." Tears pricked my eyes. Real tears. Not the fake ones Kieran was shedding on TikTok. "Thank you. Marcus, I might need that shark later. But right now, I need to kill the narrative." "Go home," Marcus said. "Write the press release of your life, and Jocelyn bury them." I went home. I did not go alone. I called Val, my best friend since college, the only person who knew the truth about the missing tuition money and the borrowed rent checks. Val arrived with a bottle of tequila and a printer. "Okay," she said, kicking off her shoes and cracking her knuckles. I saw Kieran's video. I have reported it for misinformation about 20 times. But the algorithm loves drama. We need facts. Cold, hard, undeniable facts. I have the spreadsheet, I said. Open it, Val commanded, and log into your bank. We are going to do an audit, a forensic audit of the Bank of Jocelyn. We spent the next 4 hours going through 5 years of statements. It was grueling. It was like performing an autopsy on my own financial life. August 2021. $3,000 for Kieran's business startup that never started. December 2022. $5,000 for my mother's emergency dental work, which coincided with her getting veneers. July 2023. $8,000 to pay off my father's credit card debt so they would not lose the house. Every transaction was a stab wound. Every yes I had ever said was a line item. Val categorized them all: housing, luxury goods, bailouts, cash transfers. When we finished, Val hit the sum button. Jesus, Joss, she whispered. The number on the screen was $352,481.16. Over 10 years. That was a house. That was a retirement fund. That was my freedom, eaten away bite by the people who were currently calling me a thief. I need to post, I said. I need to end this. Do not write a novel, Val warned. Don't defend yourself. Just show the receipts. Internet court does not read paragraphs. It looks at pictures. I opened my phone. I went to the same platforms where they were dragging my name through the mud. I created a carousel post. Slide 1. A screenshot of Kieran's text message from the airport. The timestamp clearly visible. We flew ahead to save space. Buy your own ticket. Send money. Slide 2. A screenshot of the notifications from my banking app, showing the declined transactions at the duty-free shop and the in-flight Wi-Fi, timestamped after I had been left behind. Slide 3. A simple graph Val had made. One bar showed Jocelyn's contribution to family $350,000. The other bar showed family's contribution to Jocelyn $0. Slide 4. A screenshot of my call log. 122 outgoing calls. 0 incoming. I typed the caption. I did not use hashtags. I did not beg for sympathy. I paid $12,000 for a trip I did not get to go on because my family left me at the gate to avoid paying an overweight baggage fee. While I was calling them 122 times to see if they were okay, they were trying to buy perfume with my credit card at 30,000 feet. The total cost of my silence over the last decade has been $350,000. Today, that silence is no longer for sale. You want to call me a scammer, post your own bank statements. I will wait. I hit post. Then I turned off notifications and poured a shot of tequila. To the shark, Val said, clinking her glass against mine. To the shark, I replied. We watched the tide turn in silence. It started slowly. A few likes, then the shares, then the comments shifted. User 456. Wait, look at the timestamps. He texted her to buy her own ticket. After they left her. Sarah J. Holy crap. 350K girl. Adopt me. I will carry your luggage. Local neighbor. I live down the street from the Renfords. They drive new cars but never work. This tracks. Then, the coup de grace. A woman named Brittany, not Kieran's Brittany, but a girl he had dated 2 years ago, commented, ex-girlfriend Brit. Can confirm. Kieran stole my credit card to buy FIFA points. His sister paid me back to keep me from calling the cops. He is a leech. The internet loves a villain, but it loves a receipt even more. The sympathy for the poor, stranded elderly parents evaporated. People started tagging Kieran, asking why he was buying duty-free perfume if they were so desperate for food. They asked why he didn't sell his Balenciaga sneakers if he was starving. By midnight, Kieran had deleted his video. My mother had set her Facebook to private. The next morning, I received a voicemail. It was from a French number. It was my father. He was not screaming this time. His voice sounded small, defeated and terrified. Jocelyn, look, we made a mistake. It is cold here. The hotel is awful. Your mother cannot stop crying. We have no way to get home. The airline wants $2,000 a ticket for a flight tomorrow. Please, we are family. Just get us home, and we will pay you back. I swear. Pay me back, I said to the empty room, laughing softly. It was the funniest joke I had ever heard. They were not coming home on my dime. They were currently calling every aunt, uncle, and distant cousin they had, begging for money, and thanks to my post, every single one of those relatives knew exactly who they were dealing with. Uncle Mike, who had called for my arrest yesterday, commented on my post. Jocelyn, I had no idea. Your father told me you stole his pension. I am so sorry. They would get home eventually. Charity is a hard habit to break for some people, but they would return to a scorched earth. Their reputation was gone. My bank account was locked. And I was standing in the center of the crater, untouched. They returned to American soil 3 days later, not as conquerors, but as survivors of a disaster entirely of their own making. I knew they were back because the notification from my Find My app, which I had not yet revoked access to, keeping it as my early warning radar pinged. Their devices were no longer clustering in the 10th arrondissement of Paris. They were at O'Hare International Airport. I did not feel fear. I felt the cold, metallic click of a weapon being loaded. I was ready. I had spent the last 72 hours fortifying my life. I had changed the digital locks on my apartment door. I had spoken to Mr. Henderson, the head of building security, a man who had been a Marine for 20 years and had zero patience for nonsense. I showed him the screenshots of Kieran's threats. I showed him the email from my father to my boss. If they show up, Mr. Henderson had said, his jaw set like granite. They do not get past the lobby. You have my word. Ms. Renford. And show up they did. They did not go to their own home in the suburbs. They came straight to my building in the West Loop. They arrived in an airport taxi. 4 people crammed into a sedan because they could no longer afford the XL. I watched them on the lobby security feed, which Mr. Henderson had kindly patched into my TV. It was like watching a silent horror movie. My mother looked haggard, her hair unwashed, wearing the same clothes she had left in. My father was red-faced, marching toward the glass doors with the energy of a man looking for a fight. Kieran was trailing behind, hood up, phone out, probably recording. Brittany was nowhere to be seen. Smart girl. She must have bailed the moment the wheels touched the tarmac. The intercom buzzed, a harsh, angry sound. I walked over to the panel on my wall. I did not press the video button. I just pressed talk. Yes, I said. My voice was calm. Open this door. Jocelyn. My father's voice distorted through the speaker, loud enough that I had to step back. Open this door right now. I know you are up there. I am not expecting any guests, I said. Guests. My mother's voice joined in, shrill and breaking. We are your parents. We have been sleeping in a rat-infested hotel for 3 days because of you. Open the door. I need to use your bathroom. I need to lie down. On the screen, I saw my mother slump against the concierge desk, clutching her chest. It was a performance worthy of an Academy Award. She was playing the frail, abandoned mother card to the hilt. A few residents waiting for the elevator looked uncomfortable, glancing between her and the security guard. Oh, look at her, my mother wailed, pointing at the camera she knew I was watching. She is watching us suffer, my own daughter. I carried her for 9 months, and she treats us like dogs. Ma'am, please step back from the desk, the concierge said politely but firmly. Don't tell me what to do, my father snapped at him. Call her, tell her to buzz us up. We have rights. We are family. I pressed the talk button again. You do not have rights to my home. You are trespassing. Leave, or I will have you removed. Trespassing, Kieran shouted, stepping up to the intercom. I could see the rage in his eyes even through the grainy black and white feed. You owe us, Jocelyn. You owe us for the tickets. You owe us for the hotel. You stole our vacation. Open the door so we can settle this. Settle this. I laughed. A dry, humorless sound. The only thing that is settled is my bank account. It is closed to you, forever. I'm going to smash this door in, Kieran yelled. He kicked the glass panel of the entryway. Thud. It was reinforced glass. It didn't break, but the sound echoed through the lobby. That was the line. Mister? Henderson stepped into the frame. He was 6'4" and built like a tank. He did not yell. He simply moved into their space. That is enough, mister, Henderson said. His voice was deep and commanded absolute silence. You are causing a disturbance. You are damaging property. You need to leave the premises immediately. She is my daughter, my father argued, poking a finger at Mr. Henderson's chest. A fatal mistake, Mr. Henderson caught the finger, not hurting him, but holding it just firmly enough to make a point. She is a resident of this building. You are not, and she has stated she does not want you here. He reached behind the desk and pulled out a manila envelope. Ms. Renford prepared this for you. He handed it to my father. My father tore it open. Inside was a formal notice of no trespassing, drafted by the corporate lawyer Marcus had loaned me. It stated clearly that Robert, Linda, and Kieran Renford were barred from entering the building, my office, or approaching within 500 feet of me. If they violated it, they would be arrested. This is a joke, my father stammered, reading the legal letterhead. It is not a joke, Mr. Henderson said. It is a warning. If you are not out of this lobby in 2 minutes, I am calling the police, and unlike your daughter, the Chicago PD will not hesitate to put you in a cell. My mother let out a sob that was half rage, half despair. Jocelyn, I know you can hear me. How can you be so cruel? We have no money. We have no food in the house. At least give us some cash for groceries. You have a house full of furniture, I said into the intercom. Sell it. You bitch, Kieran screamed. He grabbed a stack of mail, formed the counter my mail, and threw it across the lobby. I will ruin you. You think that post was the end? I have dirt on you. I will tell everyone about the... He trailed off. He had nothing. He realized in that moment that he had no leverage. He knew nothing about my life because he had never asked. He didn't know my friends. He didn't know my secrets. He didn't even know my favorite color. Go home, Kieran, I said. Before you get arrested for vandalism. Mr. Henderson took a step forward. My father grabbed my mother's arm. Come on, we are leaving. But Robert, I said we are leaving, he hissed. He dragged her toward the door. Kieran followed, kicking a decorative planter on his way out, spilling soil onto the pristine marble floor. I watched them get back into the taxi. They argued with the driver for a moment, probably realizing they didn't have enough cash for the next leg of the trip before the car finally pulled away. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from adrenaline. It was over. They were gone, or so I thought. An hour later, I was sitting on my couch, trying to read a book, when my phone pinged. It was a security alert from my bank. Alert failed login attempt. User ID, Jocelyn W. _Maine. IP address residential, Naperville, Illinois. Naperville, my parents' house. They were home, and the first thing they did before unpacking, before showering, before eating, was try to hack into my bank account. Another ping, alert failed password. Reset attempt, security question, answered incorrectly. I smiled grimly. They were trying the old passwords. Kieran, 1998. Family First. Paris. 2026. They didn't know I had changed everything to a random string of 24 alphanumeric characters generated by an encryption app. Another ping. Alert account locked due to excessive failed attempts. Please contact customer service. They were desperate, and desperation makes people dangerous. They weren't just trying to get money for groceries. They were trying to regain control. They realized the tap had run dry, and they were trying to smash the pipes to get the water flowing again. But there was something else, a nagging thought in the back of my mind. They had gone back to their house. The house in Naperville. The house I grew up in. The house where I paid the mortgage. I had been paying that mortgage directly from my account for 5 years. My name wasn't on the deed my father had refused to add me, saying it was his legacy. But my money was the only thing keeping the bank from taking it. I had stopped the payments last week. But mortgage defaults take months, sometimes years, to process. They were safe there for now. Or were they? I opened my laptop and logged into the mortgage lender's portal. I had the login because I was the one who managed the account, even if it was in my father's name. I looked at the dashboard. Status past due. Amount due. $2,400. But then my eye caught something else. A notification in the Documents tab. Loan modification request. Pending. I clicked on it. The document was dated 2 months ago. It was a request for a home equity line of credit, HELOC, a second mortgage. A request to borrow $150,000 against the equity of the house. The status was approved. The funds had been disbursed 6 weeks ago. My heart stopped. $150,000. They had drained the equity of the house I had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars paying off. Where did the money go? They didn't have it. If they had it, they wouldn't have been stranded in Paris. They wouldn't be trying to hack my savings account for grocery money. I went to the transaction history of the HELOC. Transfer to Coinbase, transfer to DraftKings, transfer to luxury auto imports, crypto, gambling, and a down payment on a car I didn't know about. Kieran. It was all Kieran. My parents had leveraged their home, my investment, to fund Kieran's gambling addiction and his delusions of being a crypto investor. And the money was gone. All of it. I sat back. The room spinning. This wasn't just financial abuse. This was financial suicide. They were not just broke. They were drowning in debt I didn't know existed. And now that I had cut them off, the anchor was going to pull them down fast, and they would try to drag me down with them. I picked up my phone and called the corporate lawyer Marcus had given me. "This is Catherine," she answered on the first ring. "Catherine," I said, "it is Jocelyn. We need to talk. They are not just thieves. They are arsonists, and they just burned their own house down." "What happened?" "They took out a second mortgage," I said, my voice cold. "And they blew it all. I need to know my exposure. I need to know if they can come after me for this." "Is your name on the deed?" "No." "Is your name on the new loan?" "No, but—" I hesitated. "I have been paying the primary mortgage for 5 years. Does that create an implied contract?" "It might," Catherine said. "But more importantly, Jocelyn, if they forged your signature on any of those documents to show household income to get approved, that is fraud. Federal fraud." I stared at the screen, at the approved stamp on the loan document. "Catherine," I whispered, "I need you to hire a private investigator. I need to see the original application for that loan." Because I had a sinking feeling that my father, a man who couldn't use a PDF converter without help, hadn't secured a $150,000 loan on his own credit score of 500. Someone had helped him. Someone had signed for him. And if that signature looked anything like mine, I wasn't just going to cut them off. I was going to send them to prison. The document on my screen was a PDF file named Loan Modification Agreement Final Executed. It looked official. It had the bank's letterhead. It had the notary's stamp. And at the bottom of page 14, it had 2 signatures. One was my father's, a messy scrawl that I had seen on report cards and birthday checks for 29 years. The other one was mine. I stared at it. It was my name. It was my loop on the J and the sharp cross on the T. But it was wrong. The slant was too aggressive. The spacing was uneven. It looked like a caricature of my signature. A forgery drawn by someone who had seen it 1,000 times but never actually felt the rhythm of the pen. I zoomed in. The pixels blurred, but the truth remained sharp. This was the signature I used when I was 18, before I developed my professional autograph. It was the signature from my high school yearbook. My stomach turned over. A slow, sickening rotation. They had not just borrowed money, They had stolen my identity. They had impersonated me to a federal lender, claimed my income as a guarantee, and leveraged the only asset they had left, the house I was paying for, to secure a loan of $150,000. I picked up my phone and called Catherine, the attorney. "I found it," I said, my voice sounding hollow in the empty apartment. "They forged my signature. They took out a second mortgage in my name as a cosigner." "Send it to me," Catherine said immediately. "And Jocelyn, do not delete anything. This just went from a civil dispute to a federal crime." "I know," I said. "Where did the money go?" "Catherine, $150,000 in 6 weeks. It is impossible to spend that fast." "We will find out," she promised. "I have the report from the private investigator coming in within the hour. Can you come to my office?" "I am on my way." An hour later, I was sitting in a leather chair in a high-rise office on Wacker Drive, looking at a dossier that dismantled the last 10 years of my brother's life. The investigator, a man named Mr. Vance, who looked like a retired linebacker, slid a series of photographs across the mahogany table. "You have been paying tuition for Kieran Renford to attend the graduate program at DePaul University for 3 years," Mr. Vance stated. He spoke with the flat, unemotional delivery of a man who dealt in facts, not feelings. "Yes," I said. $35,000 a semester. Kieran Renford was expelled from DePaul 4 years ago during his undergraduate studies for academic dishonesty. He never applied to the graduate program. He is not a student there. He is not a student anywhere. I looked at the photos. Kieran entering a casino in Hammond, Indiana. Kieran driving a car I didn't recognize, a Porsche with temporary plates. Kieran handing a stack of cash to a man in a booth at a nightclub. "So, where did the tuition money go?" I asked, though I already knew. "Online gambling, sports betting, and lifestyle maintenance," Mr. Vance said. "We traced the IP addresses from his social media. He rents a penthouse apartment in River North under a fake name. He has been living there with his girlfriend, Brittany, and telling you he was in a dorm. The second mortgage your parents took out, the $150,000, we tracked the wire transfers." He flipped a page. $70,000 went to a crypto wallet that crashed 2 weeks ago. $50,000 went to pay off a bookie in Cicero. The rest went to the Paris trip fund and a down payment on that Porsche. I sat back, feeling the leather creak against my blazer. It was a complete fabrication. My parents knew. They had to know. They were not just enabling him. They were conspiring with him. They had looked me in the eye at Thanksgiving, Christmas, and Easter, told me how proud they were of Kieran's studies, and taken my checks with a smile. They had forged my signature to bail him out of gambling debts, risking their own home and my credit to keep the lie alive. "They sacrificed everything for him," I whispered. "The house, my trust, their own future. They are drowning, Ms. Renford," Catherine said softly. "The bank is moving to foreclose on the Naperville house in 90 days because the second mortgage payments were never made. They are desperate. That is why they are attacking you. You were the only life raft they had left." "I am not a life raft," I said, my voice hardening. "I was the fuel they were burning to keep the party going." My phone buzzed on the table. It was an email notification. Sender Linda Renford. Mom subject. Final warning. I opened it. Catherine leaned in to read over my shoulder. "Jocelyn, you have broken my heart. I cannot believe a child I raised would be so cruel. You have stolen our peace. You have abandoned us in our old age. I have spoken to a lawyer. If you do not unlock the cards and transfer $50,000 for our living expenses by tomorrow, I will sue you for elder abuse and emotional distress. I will tell the world you tricked us into signing over the house. Do not test me. I am your mother." "Elder abuse," Catherine scoffed. "That is rich." "She says I tricked them into signing over the house," I pointed out. "They are projecting. They know I will find the forgery. So they are trying to accuse me of fraud first." "It is a classic defense mechanism," Catherine said. "Attack before you are attacked. But they have no evidence. We have the forensic trail. We have the IP addresses. We have the forged document. What do we do? I asked. Catherine looked me in the eye. We file a police report for identity theft and forgery. We file a civil suit to sever your liability from the house. And we send a cease and desist letter so heavy it will crack their foundation. But Jocelyn, you need to understand something. If we file the police report for the forgery, your parents and your brother will likely face felony charges, your father for signing it, your mother for witnessing it, and Kieran for receiving the stolen funds. She paused. Are you ready to send your family to prison? I looked at the photo of Kieran laughing in the casino. I looked at the email from my mother threatening to sue me. I thought about the 122 missed calls at the airport. They built this cage, I said. I am just locking the door. Draft the papers, I told her. I left the lawyer's office feeling like I was walking through a dream. The city noise was muffled. The wind off the lake felt sharp and cleansing. I took a cab back to my apartment. I needed to think. I needed to prepare for the nuclear fallout of what I had just set in motion. When I got home, my doorman handed me a package. This came for you, Ms. Renford. No return address. I took it upstairs. Inside was a small box. I opened it. It was my grandmother's locket, the gold one with the small diamond in the center. I had left it at my parents' house for safekeeping because I was afraid of losing it during my move to the city 3 years ago. There was a note attached. It was not from my parents. It was from Aunt Sarah, my mother's sister. The only person in the family who didn't look at me like a bank account. Joss, I pretended I wanted to buy this so they wouldn't sell it to a pawn shop. They are clearing out the house. Honey, they sold your piano yesterday. They are selling your old books, your trophies, everything in your room. Your dad is talking about liquidating assets before the bank comes. I thought you should have this back. Be safe. I love you. Aunt Sarah. I held the cold gold medal in my hand. They were selling my childhood, my piano, the one I practiced on for hours every day to earn the scholarship they bragged about but never contributed to. My books, my history. They were stripping my existence for parts to buy a few more weeks of denial. I felt a sharp pang of grief, but I crushed it instantly. I walked over to my desk and placed the locket next to the hard drive containing the PI's report. Go ahead, I said to the empty air. Sell it all. Sell the bed I slept in. Sell the desk I studied at. Every item you sell is just another receipt proving you are insolvent. I did not cry over the piano. I did not cry over the books. I was done crying over things that could be bought. I was mourning the people who could not be saved. Later that evening, around 10 o'clock, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I usually ignored them, but something told me to answer. This is Jocelyn, I said. Don't hang up. The voice was female, young, and shaking. It sounded like she was hiding in a closet. Who is this? It is Brittany, Kieran's girlfriend. I paused. Ex-girlfriend. I assume, since you are calling me. I am at their house in Naperville, Brittany whispered. I am locked in the guest room. It is a madhouse here. Jocelyn, your dad is drinking. Your mom is screaming at the walls. Kieran is smashing things. He put a hole in the drywall an hour ago because his bookie called. Why are you calling me? Brittany? I want out, she said. I want to go home. My parents live in Tampa. I have no money. Kieran took my credit cards. He said I can't leave because I know too much. He is holding my ID. That is kidnapping, I said. Call the police. I can't, she hissed. If I call the cops, they will arrest me too. I used the cards. Jocelyn. Kieran made me sign things too. I am scared. I just want to go home. And what do you want from me? I have his laptop, she said rapidly. I know the password. It has everything. The emails between him and your dad planning the forgery, the crypto wallet keys, the chats where they talk about how they were going to guilt trip you into paying off the second mortgage. I have recordings. Jocelyn, I recorded them tonight talking about how they are going to lie to the court about you. I sat up straighter. You have recordings of them conspiring to commit perjury. Yes, and I have the video of your dad practicing your signature. Kieran filmed it as a joke. My breath caught. That was it. That was the nail in the coffin. A video of the forgery in progress. What do you want? I repeated. A plane ticket to Tampa, she said. Tonight, and $500 for a cab. You buy the ticket, send me the confirmation code, and I will email you the entire contents of his hard drive right now. I will leave the laptop under the bed, but I will give you the cloud login. How do I know you are not lying? I will send you a sample, she said. Check your email in 30 seconds. I waited. My inbox pinged. Subject proof. Attached was a 10-second video file. I clicked play. The video was shaky. It showed my father sitting at the kitchen table, my childhood kitchen table, with a pen in his hand and a light box under a piece of paper. He was tracing over an old birthday card. Voice of Kieran behind camera. Steady, old man, keep the loop tight. If the bank buys this, we are rich. Voice of Dad. Shut up. I birthed her. I can sign for her. It is my money anyway. The video ended. I felt a cold rage settle in my bones. It is my money anyway. Okay, I said to Brittany, putting the phone back to my ear. Deal. Really? She sounded like she was about to sob. I am booking the ticket now. United Airlines. Departing O'Hare at 6 a.m. I will arrange an Uber to pick you up down the street from the house in 20 minutes. Can you get out? I will climb out the window, she said. I don't care. I am gone. Send me the files. Brittany, all of them. If you hold anything back, I will add your name to the lawsuit. I am sending them now. Thank you. Jocelyn, I am sorry. I didn't know they were this crazy. I really didn't know. We all learn eventually, I said. I hung up. I opened my travel app and booked a one-way ticket to Tampa for Brittany Smith. It cost me $400. Then I watched my inbox. Ping, ping, ping. Dozens of files flooded in. Bank statements, chat logs, voice memos, videos. It was a treasure trove of incriminating evidence. It was the anatomy of a betrayal. Documented in high definition. I downloaded everything. I backed it up to 3 different cloud servers and an external hard drive. Then I forwarded the entire zip file to Catherine and the private investigator. Email to Catherine. Subject, the smoking gun attachment. Renford_fraud_evidence.zip. Body Brittany just flipped. Here is the video of the forgery and the conspiracy to commit perjury. Go for the throat. I poured myself a glass of water and walked to the window. I looked out at the city lights. Somewhere out there in the suburbs, in a house that was slowly being emptied of its soul. My family was raging against the dying of the light. They thought they were fighting a daughter who would eventually fold to guilt. They didn't realize they were fighting a witness who had just bought the prosecution's star testimony for the price of an economy seat to Florida. I looked at the time. It was midnight. The new day had begun, and in this new day, the term family no longer meant protection. It meant leverage, and I held all of it. The morning after I received the digital smoking gun from Brittany, I dressed for war. I chose a tailored navy suit, stiletto sharp enough to puncture a lung, and the diamond earrings I had bought myself for my 28th birthday. I walked into Nebula Horizon not as a victim of identity theft, but as the creative director who was about to close the biggest deal of the quarter. We were pitching to Vanguard Motors, a luxury automotive giant looking to rebrand their electric vehicle line. The contract was worth $4 million. My boss, Marcus, had asked if I wanted to sit this one out given the personal turbulence. Absolutely not, I had told him. Work is the only thing making sense right now. So there I was, standing at the head of the glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor, commanding the attention of 6 Vanguard executives. The lights were dimmed, the projector hummed. I was midway through explaining our strategy for demographic targeting when I saw movement in the hallway. Our office had an open floor plan, but the main conference room, the fishbowl, we called it, was a glass box visible to everyone. Usually. The sight of people walking past was just background noise. But this group was not walking. They were marching. I stopped speaking mid-sentence. My laser pointer wavered on the screen for a fraction of a second before I steadied it. It was them. My mother was wearing her Sunday church dress, a pastel pink ensemble that made her look harmless and sweet. My father had put on his only suit, the one he usually reserved for funerals and court dates. Kieran was wearing a button-down shirt tucked into slacks, his hair combed, looking like the upstanding graduate student he pretended to be. They had bypassed the front desk. I found out later they told the new receptionist, a sweet girl named Emily, that my father had a heart condition and needed to give me his medication urgently. They had played on her empathy, just as they had played on mine for a decade. Marcus, sitting to my right, saw my eyes shift. He turned around. His jaw tightened. He reached for his phone to call security, but it was too late. The glass door swung open. They did not knock. They did not apologize for the interruption. They staged an entrance. "Jocelyn!" my mother cried out. It was a theatrical wail that bounced off the glass walls. She rushed into the room, ignoring the 6 stunned clients in expensive suits, and threw herself onto her knees in front of me. She actually grabbed the hem of my skirt. "Please," she sobbed, loud enough for the entire office to hear. "Please, baby, don't do this to us. We are starving. Your father is sick. How can you be so cold?" My father stepped in behind her, playing the role of the righteous, aggrieved patriarch. He pointed a shaking finger at me. "You look at her," he bellowed to the room, addressing the Vanguard executives. "Look at this woman you are doing business with. She lives in luxury while her parents are about to be homeless. She cut us off. She abandoned us in a foreign country." The room went dead silent. The Vanguard CEO, a man named Mr. Sterling, no relation to Marcus, looked from my father to me with an expression of pure horror. This was a corporate nightmare. Unprofessional, messy, toxic. "Kieran," I said, my voice calm, cutting through the theatrics. "Get them up. You are embarrassing yourselves." Kieran stepped forward, shaking his head with a look of profound disappointment. "Jocelyn, stop lying. We just want to talk. Mom is selling her wedding ring to buy food. We drove here because you blocked our calls. Who does that? Who treats their family like trash just because they have a little money?" It was a perfect performance. If I did not know them, I would have hated me too. I saw the doubt in the eyes of the clients. They were wondering if I really was a monster. "You are an ungrateful, heartless brat," my father shouted, his face reddening. "We gave you life. We sacrificed everything for your career, and this is how you repay us, by letting us die in the street." My mother sobbed louder, burying her face in her hands. "I just want my daughter back. I don't care about the money. I just want my baby." Marcus stood up. "This is a private meeting. You need to leave immediately." "We are not leaving until she acknowledges us," my father yelled. "She thinks she is better than us because she works in a glass tower. She is nothing without us. Nothing." I looked at them. I looked at the clients. I felt a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching a play I had already read the script for. They wanted a scene, fine. I would give them a scene, but I would direct it. "Marcus," I said softly, "sit down." He looked at me, worried. "Jocelyn." "Sit down," I repeated. I turned to the computer connected to the projector. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said to the Vanguard executives, keeping my voice level and professional, "I apologize for this interruption. What you are seeing is a very compelling pitch for a narrative of victimhood. However, at Nebula Horizon, we believe in data, we believe in evidence, and we believe in transparency." My father faltered. What? What are you doing?" "You said you sacrificed everything for me." I said, looking him in the eye. "You said you just want your daughter back. You said it is not about the money." I minimized the slide deck for the electric vehicle campaign. I opened the folder labeled Truth. "Let us see if that aligns with the internal communications," I said. I clicked on a video file. It was one of the files Brittany had sent me the night before. Kieran had recorded it on his phone. likely to mock me later, or perhaps just because his narcissism compelled him to document everything. The video filled the massive presentation screen behind me. The audio boomed through the conference room speakers. The scene. The kitchen of my parents' house in Naperville. My father is sitting at the table with a beer. Kieran is holding the camera. My mother is counting a stack of cash, my cash. Video father. 150 grand from the bank, plus what we squeeze out of Jocelyn for the trip. We are set for the year. Video mother. Do you think she will notice the second mortgage payment? Video father. Who cares? She pays everything blindly. Just tell her it is an inflation adjustment or some garbage. She is so desperate for us to like her. She would pay for air if I told her I was choking. Video Kieran behind camera. God, she is pathetic. Look at me. I am a big city director. She is just a cash cow. Once we get the money for Paris, we should tell her to stay at a different hotel. I don't want her ruining my vibe with her sad single energy. Video mother laughing as she stuffs cash into her purse. Just beg the idiot. Cry a little. Tell her I am sick. She is soft. She always folds. We get the money. Then we ignore her until Christmas. The video ended. The silence in the room was heavier than lead. My mother had stopped crying. She was kneeling on the floor, staring up at the screen, her mouth open in a perfect O of shock. My father looked like he had been struck by lightning. Kieran had turned the color of ash. I turned back to the room. I did not look triumphant. I looked efficient. That, I said, gesturing to the frozen image of my mother laughing at my expense, is why I cut them off. That is why I canceled the hotel. And that is why, despite their claims of starvation, they drove here in a car bought with a fraudulent loan taken out in my name. I pressed a button on the intercom phone on the table. Security to the fishbowl. Immediately. Then I looked at my father. You called me ungrateful. You called me a monster. But the only thing I am guilty of is stopping the payments on my own exploitation. You, my father stammered. His bravado was gone, replaced by the terrified realization that his mask had been ripped off in front of people who mattered. You recorded us. That is illegal. Actually, I said, that video was provided by a whistleblower within your own organization. Even your allies are tired of you. Kieran snapped. The humiliation was too much for his ego. He let out a feral growl and lunged at me. You bitch, I will kill you. He scrambled over the conference table, knocking over a pitcher of water. The Vanguard executives jumped back in alarm. I did not flinch. I did not move. Before Kieran could reach me, a body slammed into him. It was David, one of our senior graphic designers. He was a quiet man who usually spent his days adjusting kerning on fonts. But he played rugby on weekends. He tackled Kieran mid-air, driving him into the carpet with a thud that shook the floor. Stay down, David yelled. Pinning Kieran's arms behind his back, 2 security guards burst into the room a second later. They grabbed my father, who was trying to back out of the door, and hauled my mother up from the floor. Get off me, my mother screamed, her nice girl act dissolving into pure venom. She is a liar. That video is fake. It is AI. She made it up. Get them out, Marcus ordered, his voice shaking with rage. And call the police. I want them charged with trespassing and assault. As they were dragged out, my father looked back at me. There was no love in his eyes, only hatred. You are dead to me, he screamed. Dead. I have been dead to you for years, I replied quietly. I was just a ghost who wrote checks. When the door closed and the shouting faded down the hallway, the room was incredibly quiet. The pitcher of water dripped onto the carpet. David stood up, straightening his tie, breathing hard. Are you okay, Jocelyn? He asked. I am fine, David, thank you, I said. I turned back to the clients. They were staring at me. I expected disgust. I expected them to pack their bags and leave, wanting to distance themselves from this dysfunction. Mr. Sterling, the CEO of Vanguard, cleared his throat. He stood up and walked over to the window, looking out for a moment, then turned back to me. "Ms. Renford," he said, "in my 30 years of business, I have seen hostile takeovers, boardroom brawls, and competitors try to burn my company to the ground. I have never seen anyone handle a crisis with that level of absolute, terrifying composure." He looked at the screen where the paused video still showed my family's betrayal. "If you can handle your own family like that," he said, "I have zero doubt you can handle our brand. You have the contract." He extended his hand. I shook it. My grip was firm. "Thank you. Mr. Sterling, we will not let you down." "I know you won't," he said, "but take the rest of the day off. That is an order." I nodded. As the room cleared out and the adrenaline began to fade, I sat down in one of the leather chairs. My hands were finally starting to tremble. It wasn't fear. It was the aftershock of severing the final limb. Marcus sat down next to me. "The police are downstairs," he said softly. "They are taking statements. Do you want to press charges?" "For the assault?" I asked. "For everything," Marcus said. "Jocelyn, they tried to attack you in your place of work. Kieran tried to hurt you. This isn't a family dispute anymore. It is a crime scene." I thought about the forgery. I thought about the fraud. I thought about the years of "you owe us." "Yes," I said. "I want to press charges, disorderly conduct, assault, and tell the officers to hold them. My lawyer is bringing over a file regarding federal bank fraud. We might as well do it all at once." "I will handle it," Marcus said. He stood up and squeezed my shoulder. "You are the toughest person I know." "Joss, I had to be," I said. "Look at my trainers." I looked at the blank screen where my family's faces had been moments ago. They had come here to destroy my reputation. Instead, they had cemented it. They wanted to show the world I was a bad daughter. All they proved was that I was a formidable opponent, and the war was far from over. Kieran was going to jail for the assault. That was immediate. But the real reckoning, the one involving the house, the loans, and the stolen identity, was just beginning. I picked up my laser pointer. I put it in my pocket. I walked out of the fishbowl, head high, walking past the staring faces of my colleagues. I did not hide. I did not explain. I simply went to my office, closed the door, and called Catherine. "They are in custody," I told her. "Bring the paperwork. It is time to drop the hammer." The legal fallout from the incident at Nebula Horizon was swift and severe. Within 24 hours of my family being escorted out of the building by police, a judge had granted a temporary restraining order. It was a piece of paper that legally mandated Robert, Linda, and Kieran Renford to stay 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. For a normal family, a court order is a wake-up call. It is the moment where shame kicks in, where parents realize they have pushed their child too far and retreat to reflect on their failures. But as I had learned painfully over the last week, the Renfords were not a normal family. They were a desperate organism fighting for survival, and I was the food source they had been cut off from. The restraining order did not bring peace. It brought a terrifying, pressurized silence. My lawyer, Catherine, kept me updated on the firestorm consuming my parents' lives. The foreclosure notice on the Naperville house had officially been served. Because of the fraudulent second mortgage, the $150,000 they had stolen in my name, the bank was moving aggressively. They had 30 days to pay the arrears or vacate the property. Kieran was in even deeper water. The bookie he owed $50,000 to was not the kind of man who sent legal letters. He sent people to break legs. According to the private investigator's report, Kieran had been seen sleeping in his car 2 nights in a row because he was terrified to stay at the house. Yet he had nowhere else to go. They were cornered animals, and cornered animals do not follow the law. They bite. 3 days after the restraining order was served, my phone buzzed with a message from Brittany, since I had flown her home to Tampa. She had become my eyes and ears inside the chaos, staying in touch with Kieran just enough to feed me information. "Brittany, he is going to do it tonight. He is convinced you have a physical ledger or a company seal in your apartment that lets you authorize wire transfers. He thinks if he gets your work laptop, he can hack the corporate account and transfer the money to an offshore wallet. He is talking about one big score to pay off the bookie and save the house. I stared at the text. It was ludicrous. That was not how corporate banking worked. I used two-factor authentication, biometric scans, and encrypted tokens. Stealing my laptop would get him absolutely nothing but a stolen piece of hardware. But Kieran was not operating on logic. He was operating on the frantic, delusional hope of an addict. Jocelyn. Does he know I have cameras, Brittany? He thinks you are bluffing. He says you are too busy with work to watch a screen. And Joss, he is not breaking in. He has a key. My blood ran cold. Jocelyn, I changed the locks 3 years ago. I never gave them a spare. Brittany, your mom gave it to him. She said she swiped a spare from your kitchen drawer during Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Just in case of emergencies. She kept it in her jewelry box. She gave it to him this morning. She told him to do what he has to do. I lowered the phone, feeling a physical blow to my chest. It wasn't the theft that winded me. It was the betrayal. My mother had stolen a key to my home 2 years ago, long before this war started. She had kept it like a sleeper agent waiting for activation. And now, she had handed that weapon to her son, fully knowing he intended to rob me. They were not just enabling him, they were accomplices to a felony. Okay, I whispered to the empty office. You want to play burglar? Let us set the stage. I did not go home. Instead, I went to work on a trap so airtight that not even a plea deal could pry them out of it. I contacted Detective Miller, the officer who had handled the assault charge at my office. I showed him the texts from Brittany. I showed him the history of threats. If he enters your apartment, Miller said, his voice grave, that is burglary. If he does it while the restraining order is active, that is aggravated stalking. And if he uses a key to do it, that is premeditation, Ms. Renford. We can put a unit outside your building, but we need to catch him in the act to make the felony charges stick. I know, I said. I am going to let him in. I executed the plan with the precision of a marketing campaign. First, the disinformation. I posted a status on LinkedIn and Instagram, public for anyone to see, heading to London for an emergency client meeting. We'll be offline for 48 hours. Chicago. Behave yourself while I am gone. I even posted a stock photo of a Heathrow luggage tag. I knew Kieran checked my socials religiously. I knew he would see it and think the coast was clear. Then, I prepared the apartment. I went home in the middle of the day with a police escort. I removed my actual work laptop and my jewelry. I placed an old, broken MacBook Pro on my desk, the bait. I left a few dummy folders labeled Nebula Financials stacked next to it. Then, I installed the eyes. I set up 4 hidden cameras, one in the entryway, one in the living room, one in my bedroom, and one focused directly on the desk. These were not standard home security cameras that recorded to a cloud. These were law enforcement grade units provided by the private investigator, linked to a live server that Detective Miller and his team could access in real time. I left one lamp on in the living room, a timer set to turn off at 11 at night, simulating someone leaving or going to sleep. Then silence. I walked out of my apartment at 4 in the afternoon. I locked the door. I took a cab. But I did not go to the airport. I went to the Hyatt House directly across the street from my building. I checked into a room on the 8th floor, facing west, from my window. I had a direct line of sight to my own balcony. The sun set. The city lights flickered on. The wait began. I sat in the dark hotel room, the air conditioning humming a low, artificial note. On the desk in front of me was my iPad, displaying the 4 feeds from my empty apartment. It was a surreal, out-of-body experience. I was looking at my sanctuary, the place I had bought with my own money, the place where I drank wine and read books, and I was waiting for my brother to violate it. Detective Miller texted me at 9 o'clock. Miller, we have a plainclothes unit in the lobby and a patrol car around the corner. Do not engage. Do not leave the hotel. Let us handle the takedown. Jocelyn? Understood. Time stretched. 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. The lamp in my apartment clicked off on schedule. The feed switched to night vision, bathing my furniture in a ghostly green glow. My phone rang. It was Catherine. "Are you sure about this, Jocelyn?" she asked. "Once he opens that door, there is no going back. This is prison time, real prison time, not just a night in the drunk tank." "My mother gave him the key." "Catherine," I said, my voice steady but thick with unshed tears. "She didn't tell him to stop. She didn't call me to warn me. She gave him the key. She sent him to rob me." "I know," Catherine said softly. "I just need you to be ready for what it feels like to watch it happen." "I have been watching them rob me for 10 years, I said. "This is just the first time I'm recording it." Midnight passed. Then, at 12:45 in the morning, movement. On the lobby camera feed, which Mr. Henderson had given me access to, I saw a figure enter the vestibule. He was wearing a dark hoodie and a mask, but I knew that walk. I knew the slump of those shoulders. It was Kieran. He did not try to buzz in. He waited. He waited for a resident to exit the building. A young woman walking her dog pushed the door open, and Kieran caught it before it closed. Slipping inside the lobby, he kept his head down, avoiding the concierge desk, and moved straight to the stairwell door. He was smart enough to avoid the elevator cameras, but he didn't know I had cameras inside the stairwell too. I watched him climb. My apartment was on the 5th floor. My heart was hammering against my ribs. A painful, frantic rhythm. Turn back, I thought. A part of me, the part that remembered him as a toddler with a scraped knee, was screaming, "Turn around. Kieran, go home. Don't do this. Don't make me destroy you." But he didn't turn back. He reached the 5th floor. He stepped into the hallway. He walked straight to my door. I leaned closer to the iPad screen, my breath fogging the glass. He looked left. He looked right. Then, he reached into his pocket. My stomach dropped. I wanted to vomit. Even though Brittany had told me, seeing it was different. He pulled out a key, a silver key with a blue plastic cover. I recognized it. It was the spare key I had given my mother when I first moved in, back when I still thought we were a family, back when I thought she wanted it for emergencies, like watering my plants or checking on me if I was sick. She had kept it. She had lied when I asked for it back. She had weaponized my trust. Kieran slid the key into the lock. It turned. The deadbolt clicked. The sound was audible on the high-sensitivity microphone of the entryway camera. He pushed the door open and stepped into my home. "He is inside." I texted Detective Miller. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. "We see him," Miller replied instantly. "Units are moving up." On the screen, Kieran moved quickly. He did not look scared. He looked entitled. He walked into the living room, scanning the area with a flashlight. He bypassed the TV. He bypassed the expensive sound system. He went straight to my home office. He saw the laptop on the desk, the decoy. He grabbed it. He didn't check it. He just shoved it into his backpack. Then he started opening my drawers. He was looking for the company seals, the authentication tokens. He found the dummy folders I had left. He swept them all into his bag. Then, he stopped. He looked at the framed photo on my desk. It was a picture of the 4 of us, me, Kieran, Mom, and Dad, taken at his high school graduation. We looked happy. I was smiling, proud of him. Kieran stared at the photo for a second. Then, he swept his arm across the desk and knocked it to the floor. The glass shattered. He stepped on the frame, grinding his heel into the faces, and turned to leave. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Silent, hot tears. That gesture hurt more than the theft. He didn't just want the money. He hated me. He hated me because I had stopped enabling him. He hated me because I was the mirror reflecting his own failures. He walked back toward the front door, his bag heavy with worthless equipment. He reached for the handle. Suddenly, the hallway outside exploded with noise. "Police, open the door!" Kieran froze. His eyes went wide behind the mask. Crash. The door, which he had unlocked, flew open as the tactical team breached. "Get on the ground! Show me your hands!" Kieran screamed. He dropped the bag. He fell to his knees, throwing his hands up. Don't shoot. Don't shoot. I live here. I live here. Liar, I said to the screen, my voice choking. 2 officers swarmed him. They forced him flat onto the hardwood floor, my beautiful hardwood floor that I had worked so hard to pay for. They cuffed his hands behind his back. One of the officers pulled the mask off his face. Kieran was crying, snot running down his nose, begging, pleading. My sister. It is my sister's place. Call her. She let me in. Ask my mom. My mom gave me the key. You have the right to remain silent, the officer recited, his voice metallic and cold. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. I watched them drag him out. He was kicking, screaming for his mother. I watched until the apartment was empty again, save for the shattered glass of the family photo on the floor. I sat back in the hotel chair. The room was dark. I was safe. My assets were safe. My company was safe. But I felt like I had just watched an execution. I picked up my phone. I had one more call to make. Not to the police, not to Catherine. I called the home phone in Naperville. It rang once, twice. My mother picked up. She must have been waiting by the phone, expecting Kieran to call with the news of his success. Did you get it? She whispered. Kieran, did you get the laptop? No, Mom, I said. There was a silence on the line so profound it felt like the vacuum of space. Jocelyn, she breathed. Kieran didn't get the laptop, I said, my voice dead and flat. But the police got Kieran. What? What did you do? Her voice rose to a shriek. Me? I didn't do anything. I was in London, remember? I let the sarcasm drip like acid. But the police tell me they caught a burglar in my apartment. He had a key you swore you lost 5 years ago. You set him up, she screamed. You evil, twisted witch. You set up your own brother. You gave him the key, Linda, I said, using her first name for the first time in my life. You sent your son to commit a felony. You are not a mother. You are an accessory. I will tell them, she yelled. I will tell them I gave him permission. It is family property. Tell them, I challenged. Please, tell the police you conspired to rob me. Tell them you provided the means of entry. They are looking for accomplices. They will be at your door in about 20 minutes. I heard a gasp. Then the line went dead. I put the phone down. I walked to the window and looked down at the street. I saw the flashing blue lights of the police cruisers. I saw them shoving a handcuffed figure into the back of a car. I pressed my forehead against the cold glass. Goodbye, Kieran, I whispered. I did not sleep that night. I sat in the chair, watching the replays of the break-in, saving the clips, organizing the evidence. I was no longer a sister. I was the prosecution, and I had never lost a case. The clock on the wall of my hotel room read exactly 2 a.m, across the street. My apartment building stood silent and dark, a monolith of glass and steel against the Chicago night. But inside Unit 502, the silence had been shattered. I sat in the dark, my face illuminated only by the glow of the iPad screen. I was no longer just a sister or a daughter. I was a witness to the autopsy of my own family. Kieran was inside. He had bypassed the decoy laptop on the desk. He had ignored the dummy folders. He was not looking for corporate secrets anymore. He was looking for blood. The desperation I saw on the night vision feed was feral. He was tearing the living room apart. Cushions were slashed open. Books were swept off shelves. The flat-screen television was smashed. A spiderweb of cracks blooming across the black glass. He was looking for cash. He was looking for anything he could fence within the hour. On the screen, I saw him pull out his phone. He held it up, the screen glowing blue against his mask. He dialed a number. A moment later, a face appeared on his screen. The audio from my high-definition security cameras picked up the conversation with chilling clarity. I can't find it, Kieran hissed, his voice trembling with adrenaline and panic. There is no cash. Dad, there is nothing here, just books and candles. On the tiny screen of his phone, I saw them. My father was in the driver's seat of his sedan. My mother was in the passenger seat, the glow of the dashboard lighting up her anxious face. They were not in Naperville. They were downstairs. They were parked in the alleyway behind my building, waiting. They were the getaway drivers. "Look in the bedroom," my father's voice crackled through the phone speaker. "She keeps a safe. I saw it once in the closet when I helped her move in. It is bolted to the floor." "The bedroom." Kieran spun around, the flashlight beam dancing wildly on the walls. "Check the jewelry box, too." My mother's voice cut in. It was sharp, cold, and utterly unrecognizable as the voice that used to sing me lullabies. "She has that diamond necklace I gave her for graduation. And the pearl earrings. Take them." "Mom, that is stealing," Kieran whimpered, a sudden flash of childish fear breaking through his bravado. "If I take the jewelry, that is grand larceny." "Take it," my mother snapped. "Larceny. She stole our future. Kieran, she owes us. She owes us that jewelry. She owes us her life. We fed her. We clothed her. And she left us to rot. Take everything you can carry." I felt a physical blow to my chest, as if someone had swung a sledgehammer into my ribs. She owes us her life. That was the justification. In their twisted, warped reality, robbing me wasn't a crime. It was a collection of a debt I had incurred simply by being born. Kieran ran into the bedroom. I switched camera feeds on my iPad. He tore open the closet doors. He threw my clothes onto the floor, my suits, my silk blouses, the trench coat I had worn to the airport. He trampled on them with his muddy sneakers. He found the safe. It was a small, digital lockbox bolted to the floorboards in the back corner. "I found it," Kieran whispered to the phone. "But it is locked. I don't know the code." "Try her birthday," my father said. "Try 0824. Kieran punched it in. Beep, beep, beep. Error. "No," Kieran cried. "It didn't work." "Try mine," my mother said. "She always used my birthday for her passwords because she loved me." Kieran punched it in. Beep, beep, beep. Error. "It is not working." Kieran started kicking the safe. "I can't open it." "Find a pry bar," my father yelled. "Smash it open. Just get the money." "Kieran, we have 10 minutes before the patrol comes around." I watched Kieran look around the room. He grabbed a heavy brass statue from my dresser, an award I had won for Advertising Campaign of the Year, and raised it over his head. He brought it down on the safe with a deafening clang. He hit it again and again, grunting with effort, sweating, terrifying in his violence. "That is enough," I whispered to the empty hotel room. I reached out and tapped the microphone icon on the smart home app on my iPad. I had integrated the entire apartment's audio system into this control panel. Every speaker in every room, the living room, the kitchen, the bedroom where Kieran was currently swinging a brass statue was at my command. I took a deep breath. My hand was steady. My heart was ice. "Hello, Kieran?" I said. My voice boomed through the apartment, amplified by the surround sound system. It was godlike, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. In the bedroom, Kieran froze mid-swing. The statue dropped from his hand and landed with a thud on the carpet. He spun around, eyes wide, terror flooding his face. Who is there?" he stammered. "And hello to you too, Mom and Dad," I continued, my voice smooth and calm. "I can see you on Kieran's phone. You look tired. Mom, is the car seat uncomfortable?" Kieran dropped the phone. It landed face up on the rug. My parents' faces stared up at the ceiling of my bedroom, confused and panicked. "Jocelyn!" My mother's voice screeched from the floor. "Jocelyn, where are you?" "I am everywhere," I said. "I am in the walls. I am in the cameras. And I am in the police station dispatch unit." Kieran scrambled back against the wall, hyperventilating. "Joss, please. It was a mistake. I was looking for—" "You were looking for the jewelry Mom told you to steal," I corrected him. "You were looking for the payment for the life I owe you. Well, Kieran, here is the payment." I pressed the Execute Scene Lockdown button on my app. Instantly, the apartment transformed. The main overhead lights flooded on. blindingly bright white. The smart blinds on the windows slammed shut with a mechanical whir, and the most important sound of all, the heavy, metallic thunk of the smart deadbolt on the front door engaging. "What is happening?" Kieran screamed. He scrambled out of the bedroom and ran to the front door. He grabbed the handle and yanked. It didn't move. He tried to turn the thumb-turn lock, but I had engaged the vacation mode deadlock. It could only be opened digitally from my master account. He was trapped. "Open the door," he screamed, pounding on the wood. "Open it, Dad. Dad, help me. Run!" I heard my father yelling from the phone lying on the bedroom floor. "Kieran, get out of there. We are leaving." "Don't leave me," Kieran wailed, sliding down the door, sobbing like a child. "Smile, Kieran," I said over the speakers. "You are on camera, and the police are already in the elevator." At that exact moment, the night outside erupted. From my hotel window, I saw the flashing red and blue lights swarm the street below, but they didn't just stop at the front entrance. 2 squad cars screeched into the alleyway behind the building, blocking both exits. I shifted my gaze to the street. I saw my father's sedan peel out of its parking spot. He tried to mount the curb to get around the police cruiser. Tires squealed. Smoke rose from the asphalt, but there was nowhere to go. A second police SUV slammed on its brakes right in front of his bumper, boxing him in. "Out of the car," I heard the amplified command from the police megaphone, even through the glass of my hotel window. "Driver, turn off the engine and throw the keys out the window. Now." I looked back at the iPad. Kieran was curled up in a fetal position on my doormat, weeping. The hallway outside my apartment was filled with heavy footsteps. Bang, bang, bang. "Police search warrant, open the door." Kieran didn't move. He couldn't move. I tapped the unlock button on my app. The deadbolt clicked open. The door flew inward, kicked open by a boot. 6 officers in tactical gear flooded the apartment, guns drawn, flashlights cutting through the bright overhead lights. "Hands, show me your hands." I watched my brother, the boy I had walked to kindergarten, the boy I had bought a car for, the boy I had protected from every consequence his entire life, get dragged to his feet. They slammed him against the wall. They cuffed his hands behind his back. "It wasn't me." He was sobbing, snot running down his face. "My parents made me do it. They are outside. Catch them, don't take me." He sold them out in a heartbeat, just as they would have sold him. I looked out the window again, down on the street. The scene was mirrored. My father was being pulled out of the driver's seat. He was fighting, wrestling with an officer, screaming about his rights. He was tackled to the hood of his own car. My mother was led out of the passenger side. She wasn't fighting. She went limp. She collapsed onto the pavement, wailing, putting on the performance of a lifetime for an audience of weary cops who didn't care. They were all in cuffs, the whole family. I watched them being loaded into separate vehicles. Kieran in a van, my father in a cruiser, my mother in another. They were separated. Finally, the toxic knot had been cut. I turned off the iPad. The screen went black. I expected to feel a surge of triumph. I expected to feel the thrill of victory, the satisfaction of the revenge I had meticulously planned. I waited for the rush, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt a vast, echoing hollowness. It was a silence so loud it made my ears ring. I walked to the hotel minibar and opened a bottle of water. My hands were trembling, not from fear, but from the sheer exhaustion of holding up the sky for 20 years. They were gone. The leeches were gone. The threats were gone. But so was the illusion. I realized then that I had been mourning them for a long time. I wasn't mourning the people who were arrested tonight. I was mourning the family I wished I had. I was mourning the parents who would have protected me, not robbed me. I was mourning the brother who would have defended me, not smashed my awards with a brass statue. I looked at the dark building across the street. My apartment was now a crime scene. There would be fingerprint dust on the walls. There would be broken glass on the floor. "It is just a house," I said to myself. I sat down on the edge of the hotel bed. I was 29 years old. I had a successful career. I had millions of dollars in potential earnings ahead of me. I had freedom, and I was completely, utterly alone. But as I watched the last police car turn the corner, its taillights fading into the Chicago night, I realized that this loneliness was different. It wasn't the loneliness of being ignored at a dinner table while paying the bill. It wasn't the loneliness of waiting at an airport gate for a family that didn't care. This was the loneliness of a blank canvas. It was terrifying. It was cold. But for the first time in my life, it was mine. I picked up my phone. I sent one text to Catherine. "Jocelyn, it is done. They are all in custody. Proceed with the eviction and the fraud charges. No mercy." Then I turned off the phone, lay down on the crisp hotel sheets, and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up over the lake, washing the city in a light that was gray, cold, and undeniably new. The fluorescent lights of the precinct interrogation room hummed with a low, maddening buzz. It was 3 a.m. The air smelled of stale coffee and floor wax. I sat on one side of the metal table, flanked by Catherine, my attorney, and Detective Miller. On the other side, handcuffed to the table leg, was my mother. My father was in the next room. Kieran was in a holding cell down the hall. They had been separated to prevent them from getting their stories straight. But judging by the look of venom on my mother's face, the story she had decided on was that I was the villain. "You are sick," my mother spat. Her makeup was smeared down her cheeks, her hair matted from the struggle in the alleyway. "You ganged up on your own brother. You baited him. You put a laptop there knowing he would take it. That is entrapment." "It is not entrapment to leave my own property on my own desk in my own home," I said calmly. "It is only a crime if someone breaks in to steal it." "He had a key," she shrieked, rattling the cuffs. "I gave him the key. That means he had permission. You can't charge him with burglary if he had a key." Catherine leaned forward, opening a thick manila folder. "Actually, Mrs. Renford, unauthorized use of a key to commit a felony is still burglary." "But that is the least of your problems right now," my mother sneered. "What? You going to sue me for the spare key?" "Go ahead. I have nothing you can take." "We know," I said, "and that is exactly why we are here." I reached into the folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was a photocopy of the loan modification agreement. I slid it across the cold metal table. "Does this look familiar?" I asked. My mother looked down. Her eyes widened. She recognized it instantly. It was the document that had secured the $150,000 they had blown on gambling and luxury cars. "I don't know what that is," she lied. Looking away. "It is a second mortgage on the Naperville house," Catherine stated. "Dated 6 weeks ago. It bears 2 signatures, Robert Renford and Jocelyn Renford." "So," my mother challenged, though her voice wavered, "you signed it? You agreed to help us?" I pulled out the second piece of evidence. The affidavit from the forensic handwriting analyst. "I did not sign it," I said. "You forged my signature, you and Dad, and we have the video of Dad practicing it at the kitchen table while Kieran filmed him." My mother went pale. The blood drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. You have a video," she whispered. "Kieran kept everything," I said. "Every text, every email, every video. He kept it all as insurance. And when the police seized his phone tonight, they found it all. We have you on tape conspiring to commit bank fraud. We have you on tape instructing Kieran to steal my jewelry. We have you on tape admitting that the money was for gambling, not for living expenses as you claimed." My mother slumped in her chair. The fight went out of her. She looked small, old, and pathetic. "We needed the money," she whimpered. "The house, the bills." "Speaking of the house," Catherine said, delivering the final blow, "there is one more thing you should know." Catherine slid a legal notice across the table. It was stamped with the seal of the DuPage County Sheriff's Office. "What is this?" my mother asked, her hands shaking so hard she could barely hold the paper. "That is an eviction notice," Catherine explained. "We ran a title search this morning. You thought you were fighting to save the house, Linda. The bank foreclosed on the property last Tuesday. You have not been paying the mortgage. You took the money Jocelyn sent you every month, the $2,400, and you spent it. You didn't pay the bank a dime for 8 months. My mother stared at the paper. No, she breathed. No, that is wrong. Rob said he paid it. Rob lied, I said. Just like he lied about the gambling. Just like he lied about Kieran's tuition. The house is gone. It is bank property now. Even if you walk out of this police station today, which you won't, you have nowhere to go. You are homeless. The silence that followed was absolute. It was the sound of a lifetime of lies collapsing under the weight of the truth. My mother looked up at me. Her eyes were filled with tears. But this time, they were real. They were tears of terror. Jocelyn, she pleaded, her voice cracking. Jocelyn, please, we are your parents. You can't let us go to prison. You can't let us be homeless. We made a mistake. We are sorry. Please, just drop the charges. We will go away. We won't bother you again. I stood up. I looked down at the woman who had told me to be grateful for a seat at the table. I looked at the woman who had laughed while I called 122 times from an airport terminal. I am not sending you to prison, I said softly. The law is— You set us up, she screamed, lunging forward as far as the cuffs would allow. You planned this. You trapped us. I leaned down, placing my hands flat on the table. I did not set a trap, Mom, I said. I just turned on the lights. You were the one stealing in the dark. I just made sure everyone could finally see you doing it. I turned and walked to the door. Jocelyn, she screamed after me. Jocelyn, come back. You owe us. You owe us. I closed the heavy steel door, cutting off her voice, outside in the hallway. The air was cool and quiet. Detective Miller was waiting. Your father is refusing to speak, Miller said. But with the evidence from your brother's phone and the forged documents, we don't really need his confession. The district attorney is pushing for maximum charges: bank fraud, identity theft, burglary, conspiracy. Your brother is looking at 5 to 10 years, your parents, likely 3 to 5, given their age, but they will lose everything in restitution. Do what you have to do, I said. Are you okay, Ms. Renford? Miller asked. I looked at the scuff marks on the linoleum floor. I will be. I signed the final statements. I handed over the last of the digital evidence, and then I walked out of the precinct. It was dawn. The sun was just breaking over the skyline of Chicago, painting the glass towers in shades of pink and gold. The city was waking up, indifferent to the tragedy that had just played out inside the concrete walls behind me. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I had 3 unread messages from family members, cousins, aunts who had heard the news of the arrests. They were asking what happened. They were asking if it was true. I did not reply. I opened my contacts. I selected the group labeled Family. I hit Delete Group. Then I went to my call settings. I blocked every single number associated with the name Renford. I was done explaining. I was done justifying. I was done paying. I hailed a taxi at the curb. O'Hare Airport, I told the driver. International Terminal. You traveling? He asked, glancing in the rearview mirror. Yes, I said. I have a flight to catch. I flew from Chicago to New York. It was a short flight, but it felt like a pilgrimage. I needed to go back to the start. I needed to go back to the scene of the crime. I arrived at JFK Airport at noon. The terminal was just as busy, just as chaotic as it had been 3 weeks ago. I walked to the same check-in counter. I walked through the same security checkpoint. I walked to gate B42. I stood there for a moment, looking at the empty seats where I had sat, and cried while my phone battery died. I looked at the spot on the carpet where I had realized I was nothing more than a wallet to the people I loved. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I walked up to the podium. Boarding pass, please, the agent said. I handed her my phone. It displayed a first-class ticket to Paris. One way, paid for by me, for me. Welcome aboard, Ms. Renford, she smiled. We have a seat waiting for you in 1A. Would you like a glass of champagne before takeoff? Yes, I said. I would love one. I walked down the jet bridge. I did not run. I did not look back to see if anyone was following me. I stepped onto the plane and turned left into the first-class cabin. I settled into the wide leather seat. I watched the other passengers boarding families, couples, solo travelers. I wondered if any of them were carrying the kind of baggage I had just checked into the cargo hold of my past. The plane taxied to the runway. The engines roared to life. As we lifted off, the ground fell away, the terminal, the city, the country, and the prison cell holding my family all shrank until they were nothing but lines on a map. I was 30,000 feet in the air. My phone was on airplane mode. No one could call me. No one could ask me for money. No one could tell me I wasn't enough. The flight attendant placed a crystal flute of champagne on my tray table. "To Paris?" she asked. I picked up the glass. I looked at the bubbles rising to the surface, breaking free. "To me," I whispered. I took a sip. It tasted like justice. It tasted like freedom. And as the plane banked toward the Atlantic, chasing the sunrise toward a city of lights I had waited my whole life to see, I finally, truly, let go. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I hope it reminded you that your worth is not a currency to be spent on people who do not value you. I would love to know where you are listening from today. Are you tuning in from a busy city, a quiet room, or maybe on a journey of your own? Please leave a comment below to share your thoughts and connect with our community. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel Healing Drama Stories, like this video, and hit the hype button to help this story reach more people who might need to hear it.